Welcome to the third session of supporting diversity in the workplace, which is maintaining the shift, monitoring, tweaking and reflecting. So this session will focus on what to drive and support the implementation of your HR plan after it has been developed. So the session will cover how this can be achieved through continuous improvement, individual and team performance, and creating a robust performance system, which includes performance management in general. To drive your HR plan, I would like to introduce the theory of change/program logic. It is a great way, this model, to ensure your HR plan is aligned to broader strategy and the goals and purpose of the organization. It is often used in non-for-profits to map organizational inputs, activities, outputs, impacts and outcomes. So using program logic to drive your HR plan allows you to address the organizational performance program more generally and simultaneously. So HR plans and goals often overlap with the organizational strategic plan and goals. Therefore, this approach ensures consistency and serves both purposes. The approach can be applied to any project, service or program. So all logic models conclude with your outcomes and clients. So this is important for HR manager as it keeps client and service priorities at the core of all activities. So this model is also used in grant applications, for example. So let's have a look at the model using an example from a diversity and inclusion strategy. Inputs. The first step is to identify what inputs will be required to reach your HR plan's goals and objectives. So your HR plan is looking, for example, to run 10 D&I events every year. To increase D&I awareness and participation, and the resources required are a budget of, say, 50,000 direct event costs and 100,000 of staff indirect costs to deliver these events. Then you look at activities. In the example of the D&I events, this is where the events would be listed. So that could be NIDOC Week celebration, Harmony Day, etc. The goal and focus is to organize those events. So most organizations stop here. So again, I like to encourage you to take it a bit further and have a look if your actions make a difference, as activities should create outputs. Output data is usually raw data, such as the number of policies developed, feedback sessions held, training programs run. And in the example of our 10 D&I events, the delivery of the 10 D&I events is the output. So outputs alone do not indicate the value or quality of that is being created. So in the example, just the delivery of the 10 events don't tell you much about the quality of those events. Now we're looking at impacts. The impacts are the effect that your activities and outputs are having on achieving your HR plan. Is it really improving things? Is your HR strategy making an impact? In our example of running 10 D&I events in 1 year, you might find that 80% of the organization attended 5 or more events, and last year only 50% attended. So very clearly, your events are having an impact on the acceptance and celebration of diversity and inclusion in your organization. But your D&I events should overall always result in outcomes for the organization. For example, one goal of the organization might be to create community harmony and promote diversity inside and outside of the organization. Now we're going back to our example of the 10 D&I events. We can tie the program logic to this goal by showing that our events increased staff participation by X% and increased staff engagement survey results pertaining to D&I by epsilon%. The key is here that the HR plan and logic should always result in outcomes for the organization, whatever they may be. As the HR manager, it is important to continuously review and tweak your program logic to make sure it stays aligned with the organization's direction, as it may change and shift focus. We are now moving to monitoring and tracking progress. I did mention some matrices in session 2 already in the context of information gathering for your HR plan. So in this session, I will expand on it in the context of tracking. We will also provide a template listing all matrices with the actual calculations so that you can use in your workplace. So have a look at your resources for this one. In order to test whether your HR plan is on track prior to implementation, it is wise to establish what baseline metrics might be useful to track. So this is usually undertaken when creating your HR strategic plan, but it can also be undertaken during implementation. So some matrices include turnover rate, measures the percentage of employees who leave the organization during a specific time period. Time to hire measures the average time it takes to fill an open position. Longer time to hire can indicate issues with recruitment processes or lack of available talent. Cost per hire measures the total cost of recruiting and hiring new employees. Lower cost per hire can indicate more efficient recruitment processes and better use of resources. Absenteeism rate measures the percentage of time employees are absent from work. So we are talking here about unscheduled absences. So high absenteeism rate can indicate issues with employee morale, job satisfaction, or workplace culture. Employee engagement. That measures the level of employee engagement and satisfaction with the organization. High employee engagement is correlated with better performance. Compensation metrics measures the cost and effectiveness of the organization's compensation and benefit programs, such as the cost of benefits per employee. Training and development return on investment measures the return on investment of training and development programs. High ROI can indicate that these programs are effective in improving employee skills and performance. Then we're coming to diversity and inclusion metrics. Generally measures the representation of diverse groups in the workforce, as well as the degree to which the organization fosters a culture of inclusion. So again, be careful here as not to breach any privacy laws when collecting this data. While it is becoming more common for people to disclose diversity attributes, it may be difficult to justify any practice of generally asking for or collecting this information for future unknown D&I purposes without having any specific needs, such as an identified target or strategic goal in your HR plan. Then we're looking at health and safety metrics. So those measures the incidence of workplace injuries and illnesses, as well as the effectiveness of the organization's health and safety programs. Succession planning metrics measures the organization's ability to identify and develop future leaders and key employees. This is particularly important when you are trying to increase diversity in leadership positions. HR service delivery metrics measures the effectiveness and efficiency of HR service delivery, such as the time it takes to respond to employee inquiries and the quality of HR services. And then we have performance metrics, measures the performance of individual employees, teams, or the organization as a whole. So for the most common matrices, you will find into your resources all calculations being explained. So this part of the session now switches focus on driving your HR plan via a performance management system and describes what is usually included. So how do you actually drive performance locally or on an individual and team level? So there are some tools you can utilize, which are performance management policy, established goals and outcomes at both team and individual levels, job descriptions and potentially redesigning those and aligning to your strategic plan, team meetings and training, performance coaching, underperformance approach. Reward and celebration program. Traditional employers recognize something like length of service. However, we have moved on from this slightly, and we are looking at for example, strong team performance, ability to champion or manage change, innovations, systems improvements, or reaching diversity and inclusion targets. So this program or policy, of course, should be mentioned and targeted in your HR strategic plan. Let's look at the policy first. How does a good performance policy look like? In order to develop or review a performance policy that is accepted at all levels of the organization, some key considerations include involving stakeholder feedback and get stakeholder buy-in, use clear and concise language, ensure accessibility, ensure consistency with other policies and strategy, ensure both reward and systems for underperformance are outlined, follow up with workshops or team meetings, and ensure a reporting system for performance reviews is outlined. Now we're moving on to setting team and individual performance plans. I will address them separately in the coming slides. However, as a HR manager, you will usually addressing both when implementing a new performance systems. The steps are conducted simultaneously or near to each other. So before setting or adjusting team and individual success plans, we recommend ensuring all teams attend a workshop and or focus group outlining what is involved. Explain how to set effective performance goals via SMART model. Highlight the benefits of setting performance goals. For example, increased autonomy and flexibility. In a lot of tasks, there is no need to tell someone exactly how to do things. Achieving the objective is the main thing. So allow for individual and a diverse way to achieve things if possible. Explain and align the program logic with employee and team performance plans. So we're continuing on setting team and individual success plans. Another step is to use measures and metrics. Both are usually focused on the activity and output levels of the program logic. For example, they may focus on the number of applications processed, or clients visited per week. They do not usually talk to the quality of the work. Use outcomes as success indicators. So those success indicators are usually focused on impact and outcomes, and they serve as a superior measure of performance overall. So for example, client satisfaction ratings and completion of projects on time are more likely to indicate that the work being conducted is impacting the HR plan or broader strategic plan. So usually goal setting will incorporate both metrics and success indicators / outcomes. Just be mindful, too many metrics can become a burden on employees. So the success indicators usually work well for employees who like to just work their goals and be trusted to get it done. It's also great for flexible work and agile work. In working with those concepts, more self-direction and personal leadership are expected from employees. In addition, people must be given more autonomy and trust. They should be enabled and allowed to take control of their ideas and work from their strengths in their own diverse way to achieve their goals. So I'm very aware that it is sometimes difficult to put a number on an outcome. However, I recommend a workshop that with either the team or the individual. So you could ask questions. How do you know that you've done a good job? How would we know as a team that we have done a good job? Another one is consensus on performance measures. How can we reach that? So instead of just setting a goal or success indicator, they should be discussed with the employee. For example, one quantitative indicator could be clients visited per day. So ask your team member if that would be a good measure of success And what would be the number? It should be a bit of a stretch. And then the question is always, oh, what am I going to do if my employee, my team member says, oh, I think I can do 5. And you think, I think it could be 10. So ask the question, what needs to happen to increase that number? How would you increase that number? Why is it 5? Avoid saying only 5. So there might be a very rational explanation, or there might be barriers or to why is it a 5. So listen in and then explain why you had a 10 in mind. We would definitely encourage to reach consensus on those goals. However, an organization always has the right to impose goals on employees' work if need be. Now we are looking at individual performance plans. So performance plan reviews are usually conducted in one-on-one sessions and involve a regular monthly or quarterly review on progress. So performance reviews are a great time to exchange important information with employees. But to be effective, this must be a genuine exchange and not an annual check-the-box exercise. So if you want to cultivate employee success, consider branching beyond the traditional annual review. So much can change in your organization or with your employee in 1 year. It is very important to stay aligned and to keep the communication going during those changes. You may want to conduct quarterly or monthly performance conversations paired with a more comprehensive year-end review. So frequent reviews allow managers and employees to stay on the same page about goals, progress and performance. It also helps employees understand exactly where they stand and what to do to improve. Managers can also provide real-time coaching and help overcome obstacles. On the organization side, they benefit from a flow of data on individual and team performance. So many organizations are kind of turned off by a quarterly or monthly performance review because it feels like a hefty time commitment. However, if you are having those regular short conversations, they don't need to be long or comprehensive to be effective. Also, any performance issues should be addressed immediately, as well as the successes celebrated timely. So performance reviews usually consist of job responsibility and performance expectations, particularly for new employees or if someone moved into another role, performance measures and metrics, success indicators, performance feedback and coaching, development goals, opportunities, rewards and recognition, and a performance improvement plan in case someone is underperforming. Generally, it is important not to focus on the past too much. Quick review, yes, but the majority of the conversation should look forward into the future. Now, after looking at individual measures, we now focus on what goes into setting up a good team success measure. So, team success indicators are a collation of all team members' individual success indicators. They are developed simultaneously with individual success indicators. I recommend having a workshop with the team for the development of those. Select the top 5 success indicators for each team and use these for reporting up to senior management. I would not recommend going beyond that number. And whilst there's no review in the same sense as a performance plan, it can be reviewed in monthly reports, team meetings, etc. They can also be added to standing team meeting agendas. This helps them keep relevant and important. Teams can benefit greatly from tracking and visualizing their results. You can use TV monitors, newsletters, posters, etc. It is a great way to create team bonding and even foster a friendly team, inter-team competition. So with diversity and inclusion in mind, it is really about together we achieve more. And there is another aspect to fostering teamwork, which is in the context of hybrid working becoming more and more important. So more and more organizations are moving to hybrid working arrangements, and we have dispersed groups and individuals. But after all, we are herd animals and our brains are hardwired to seek belonging, and we want to feel valued, and which is best achieved by a good team membership and team bonding. And to have team success indicators will definitely help to bring the team together. Now we shift the focus again and we have a look at how processes are implemented. You can argue that even the best performance system, poorly implemented, is a waste of all efforts. So how performance plan reviews are conducted is pivotal to ensuring your program objectives do not derail. So managers and leaders must ensure they avoid conscious and unconscious bias, they account for cultural differences, consider accommodations for abilities, be mindful of language and terminology, consider the impact of systemic barriers, and be flexible here. Someone in your team might be blind, so change the way you do your team meetings. You might have to tell everybody all the time who's speaking, for example. So if someone is nervous, do a walk and talk. So be consistent with your rating of performance and avoid favoritism. And last but not least, as a manager, be accountable and encourage accountability. There needs to be a balance of accountability to both staff and management so that they will do what they say they will do. So it does go two ways, and it comes back with trust it comes back to trust that is necessary to develop a culture of inclusiveness. If you are, as a manager, if you are not accountable and do what you say you're going to do, how can you expect this from your team? Continuing on with the focus on performance review, we now shift slightly onto developing a consistent style and framework for holding performance discussions and the benefits of consistently applied coaching style. There are many more styles and there is no one way to approach performance reviews and feedback. However, the coaching style of leadership has been shown to be highly engaging and less intimidating for employees. Performance systems work best when managers, employees adopt a similar framework for approaching reviews. So one example of a framework is a strengths-based approach. So where does it come from? Here's the story. An American psychologist, Don Clifton, returned after World War II and started his own human resource institute. And he posed the question, what would happen if we studied what was right with people versus what's wrong with people, what psychologists normally do. So he started looking at strengths of people, which then led to the development of the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And Don Clifton is regarded as the father of the strengths-based approach that the Gallup Institute is using for decades now, with millions of people completing it every year. So the look at what's wrong with people or looking at weaknesses is deeply ingrained in us. So remember your day as a child when you came in from school. What are the grades your parents looked at first? Was it the F or the A grades? So not too long ago, children were trained to write with their right hand, even if they were left-handed, instead of using their natural strengths, the left one. So research from Gallup found out that managing weaknesses leads to a decrease in employee engagement and has a negative effect on customer satisfaction for the organization. The Corporate Leadership Council has drawn a conclusion based on a survey of 90,000 employees in 135 organizations. A supervisor's focus on the strengths of their employees showed a very strong positive impact on performance, a whopping 36% increase. Employees themselves may not be so used to focus on what they're good at, but by paying more attention to the strengths, it does result in more enthusiasm, energy, commitment, higher self-esteem and more appreciation for each other, which is particularly important in a diversity and inclusion focused workplace. So rather than forcing team members to work on projects that need to be done, it is better and a more inclusive way to look at the qualities and the strengths of your team members within the team and look for a best fit between the qualities and the project and tasks. So this leads us to look at more soft drivers of your HR plan, apart from measures and metrics. So we're looking at leadership competencies, important here to provide adequate training, consistent standards, agree on a consistent approach and framework. Then we look at emotional intelligence. So the EQ is worth mentioning as a major contributor of performance. So what is it? EQ is commonly defined as EQ measures the level of ability an individual has in regulating their own emotions and moods, as well as understanding and considering the emotions of others. So the good news is that EQ is trainable, and you can cultivate emotional intelligence in your office. It can be a simple thing, such as letting people know that you're not having a good day. Let people know that you're struggling. Or if you feel yourself getting angry or frustrated, take a moment to examine why before reacting, or simply step outside for a few minutes. Take a walk, and which is, if that is something that helps you calming down. You find a self-assessment in your resources to dive deeper into that topic. Next one is offering coaching and mentoring. It is a proven method to build more inclusive organizations, and those methods will also drive your HR plan. There's a relatively new method that I think it's worth mentioning in the context of diversity and inclusion. It's called reverse mentoring, which is simply the opposite format of traditional mentoring. In reverse mentoring, the senior leader is mentored by a younger or more junior employee, aka mentoring in reverse. So the process recognizes that there are skills gaps and opportunities to learn on both sides of a mentoring relationship, and that flipping the traditional format on its head can be beneficial for both parties. It also challenges the idea of mentoring being elitist, as it's not all about a senior person taking someone under their wing, but a formal relationship for the purpose of skills sharing and professional development. In a diversity and inclusion context, it also might be difficult for leadership to truly understand and recognize the structural and cultural barriers that affect certain employees within the organization when they don't have direct exposure to their experiences. So this is where reverse mentoring can be highly effective, by pairing mentors from underrepresented groups with mentees in senior management. They can share perspectives, learn from each other, and work towards more an inclusive company culture. Last but not least, we have a regular feedback here that is important. To make your performance system effective, you do need good feedback and regular feedback. So if things go well and things are for both sides, so if things go well and if things are not tracking well, I like to share some principles that apply for any feedback and reflect a coaching style approach. So quite often leaders can forget that feedback and performance review is about the employee. It is important that they enter the performance discussion with the intention to listen what the team member is saying. It is a performance discussion and conversation and not a lecture. So some leaders might open the discussion by providing the employee all of the details about how they are going up front. A much more effective way to manage this is to commence the conversation by asking the employee some open question. I'm really interested in understanding more about how you're tracking with that project. What's going well and what obstacles have you faced? Or something like, before I provide you with some feedback, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on how you feel you are going in the position. Or something, can we just take a few minutes for you to sit down and get your insights on what has been working well and where you feel you need more support. So these examples set the tone with the employee that you are interested in understanding how they're failing. It helps to build trust, and ultimately it increases the likelihood of your team members sharing any struggles with their work. It also saves the leader to potentially highlight a negative that the team member was probably already aware of. An employee is more likely to own the development when they feel they have been part of the discovery process. So feedback also should be based on strengths. Strengths-based questions focus on how individuals perceive their competencies and contributions. So what have you learned about yourself from working on this project? What strengths have you found most useful on this project? Asking employees to look back at those moments helps leaders better understand what it took to get there, and more importantly, what it will take to get there again. So when employees hint to a challenge, pay attention to their cues. Is this person holding back? What does the individual's body language and tone of voice convey to you? Helping others recognize work challenges can be the first measure of relief. So when issues are brought into the open, both sides gain clarity and can begin working towards a shared solution. If performance is a journey, then it's the manager's job to help shape a path forward towards a commitment. How do you think you will act on this? What are your next steps? How can you use your strengths here? Also, feedback should always be provided timely. There is no value if an employee receives feedback some weeks later. You probably have already forgotten exactly what you did or did not. Always please provide specific examples, so stay away from interpretations. Rather use "I have noticed," "I have observed." And keep in mind that feedback is a two-way process. So give your employee, your team member, a chance to explain, to talk, make it a conversation. Depending on the situation, you can even ask, is there something that I should be doing differently in the situation? Or is there something that I could have done differently in the situation? So you get yourself feedback as a leader. So now we're putting it all together. Where many HR plans fall over is the inability to ensure performance data is being reported, tracked, and celebrated. Here are some final suggestions for your HR plan to keep it on track. Ensure you have a clear method for tracking and reporting on your individual and team success indicators. Use of online performance management systems here is highly recommended. Ensure performance data is routinely presented to the board and senior management for discussion. Keeping your presentation succinct and visualization is a great way to keep leadership engaged. Promote relevant results externally on your website and annual reports, and internally on TV screens around the office, newsletters, management updates, whatever methods you choose. Act on underperformance. Very often, in the attempt to be positive, we forget that by avoiding or ignoring underperformance, we will not only risk positive outcomes, but we can demoralize people through the loss of their belief in organizational justice and fairness. And of course, celebrate successes at every opportunity, rewarding teams and individuals, and holding organization-wide events when significant objectives have been achieved. Thank you.